Today I'll be interviewing Mrs. McNichol for my Vietnam project.
You can just pull her out here if you want to.
So, Mrs. McNichol, do you personally know anyone that had volunteered or drafted to fight in the war?
I knew one person that was going to be drafted. I was a senior in high school in 1965, and just before graduation, Pam married Dave so that he would not have to go to the war. And so that's my story. It seemed like most of the people I knew in my high school, because the kids I palled around with were headed toward college, and the guys were headed to college whether they wanted to go or not, because that was a way of avoiding the draft.
And out of the presidents Truman, Kennedy, Eisenhower, and Nixon, which president's policies did you oppose the most?
I think, with the exception of opening up China, I opposed Nixon's the most, because his reasons for being in Vietnam did not seem to be related necessarily to any harm that might come to us. It was the domino theory, and we went in just to advise, and then we started sending troops, and it built up and up and up, and there was never really a definitive goal as to when we would call a halt to the war.
Right. And about how old were you during the Vietnam War?
Okay. It started in approximately 1961-62 with the advisors. So in 65, when I graduated from high school, it was really gearing up, and like I said, my friends that were male were either getting married or going to college, because either one would keep them out of Vietnam. During college, from 65 to 70, there wasn't much going on in Kansas related to the war, because I was in Kansas at that time.
That's interesting. And did the award have an immediate emotional impact on you, or did it take some time for the whole situation to sink in?
It really didn't have an impact on me until about 1967. I had an older cousin that had graduated from Kansas University, had gone to Munich University and got his master's there, came back and went to Harvard for his doctorate, and he was recruited by the Army intelligence. And that's when he went over to do intelligence gathering, and that's when I really started paying attention to the war.
Do you vividly remember any instances of public opposition or university protests that occurred during the war?
Okay, it was interesting. In Kansas, 1968, they tried to have a protest on our college campus. It was a university very similar in size to Westchester. It was a state college, and they had 15 kids show up out of a student population of about 6,000. Kansas was not a hotbed of protest, but I do vividly remember the Kent State protests and the National Guard coming in and actually students being killed there. That really impacted me, because again, they were my age, and I couldn't imagine the United States actually going to the point of killing people over a protest.
Right, yeah, we talked about Kent State in class. And do you remember any famous music artists during the war and how their songs influenced public opinion about the war?
Interestingly enough, again, in high school in 1965, it wasn't the protest songs that were important. It was the Beatles, because the Beatles came to a city very close to where I was, and all the girls were nuts and just had to go. But during high school, yes, very definitely, the Bob Dylans, the Peter, Paul and Mary, the folk singers were the ones that seemed to have the most to say about the war, and it was definitely played on the radio station and at dances and all sorts of social gatherings.
Okay. And were your views about the Vietnam War influenced by any external factors, such as your family members or news coverage?
News coverage was sparse. You got a sanitized version of what happened over there. Very few images. The images usually were in magazines like Time, Newsweek, Life, and Look. But again, when my cousin ended up going over there, I really started paying close attention, and through his mother I was able to keep up kind of on where he was and what he was doing.